Hey everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Vacuum Exposition. I, of course, am Carl, and I will be the host, as usual, of today's episode. Now, if you are joining us for the first time today, I do a segment once a week on Sundays primarily, where I essentially go in and talk about a singular vacuum cleaner, or maybe a set of vacuum cleaners that really has, it caught my eye in terms of historical significance, or it just was fascinating in the way of technology or innovation in terms of the way we clean things up. Now, today is going to be another really special episode. Last week I did another rendition of Vacuums Rescued, and this one is going to be another interesting rendition of it as well because I had a last minute visit with a friend of mine recently who went ahead and brought me some new toys. So a big thank you to Jared, and we will get on to the things that he had brought us. But either way, we will still do a vacuum exposition today. It'll be a little bit different. So of course, we are back on the mics again today. So after going over and reviewing the footage from last week, I think this is going to be a permanent fixture for the videos just for sound quality. So without further ado, let's get on to our vacuums rescued. All right, everybody. So we've got a very eclectic group here. Some very special pieces that, some things that I've just flat out never seen before. Now, the majority of everything here was brought to me this weekend by my good friend Jared down in Eugene, Oregon. He and I have been friends for a good long time, and I usually end up with some really cool stuff from him. And this little visit that we had this past weekend was no different. So he has been clearing out some of the things that he has not needed anymore. So he and I struck up a conversation over some things, and this is some of what we have. Um, Now, starting off to the far left over there, over on the end there, the black Hoover Turbo Power. That would be a 2002-2003 Hoover Turbo Power 4900. That came out around the time that Hoover was introducing their twin chamber bagless setup. Had a big long pleated filter that went in it. You can kind of see the one that's in there right there. But the 4900 bagless was their rendition of this that had the not only the pleated filter and the bagless capabilities, but it also had the soft guard front bumper on it. So you can see that's that big, almost rubbery plastic bumper on the front. I've never had one like this, so it's actually a pretty cool machine. I have been kind of into the earlier bagless machines just because, their technology did evolve over time to what we have today, and this was Hoover's rendition of it. That bagless design with the twin chamber that came around a bit earlier. I think it was with the M Power and a few others that had that. The Turbo Power series of machines was actually quite extensive. They had not only the bagless version, they had the hard bag version, they had bag versions, they had all kinds of stuff. We will do another video on that particular machine. As time goes on, I do have another turbo power that I do want to find in order to kind of do a video with both of them together, but we may just do one focusing on it. Now, the next one is probably what most people will want me to do the exposition on today, but I do want to go through it and do a little bit of cosmetic work to it. But what we have right there, kind of in the middle, is early 2000s Kenmore Destiny Plus. For those that don't know what those are, that essentially is a Phantom Thunder that was sold through Sears under the Kenmore branding. This being a gold label Kenmore Destiny Plus, they did also have one that had like a very similar Phantom logo that was like purple and pink and stuff. But this was the latest rendition of that particular machine that utilized the 2000s logo for Kenmore. It is a really cool machine. It is based off of the later model of the Phantom Thunder. You had the silver inserts and filter cones within the dust bin, as well as the lighter purple accents and purple bin. It also is all blacked out with a 12 amp motor, so it is very, very sleek and stylish of a machine. But that machine is actually a really, really cool one. Jared found it semi recently, and he was getting rid of things, and it just didn't fit the bill as much. So I asked if I could have it in his purging of vacuum cleaners, and he let me have it. So very, very thankful for that one. It will definitely be getting a video after I do a little bit of more cosmetic work. And now that I think about it, I'm just taking a look around here. So all the machines minus one here are HEPA filtered vacuum cleaners, including the Turbo Power, the Kenmore, and the one that's directly to my right, um, except the one that is to the left of the Kenmore, which kind of brings us into the next one, which is probably the oldest specimen that I've done on the channel in quite some time. That is a 1933 Airway Green Goddess upright. The Green Goddess, as you can tell with the green handle, it also has green in the model plate, as well as there's a switch plate that's green and gold. It's a very, very cool machine. I actually made a deal with a friend of mine in Portland, Oregon, Evan, and he brought it to my friend Jared because I was unavailable. So Jared held on to it for me for a long time. I actually ended up with two of them, but unfortunately, one of them was in pretty bad shape. So between the two, I made one perfect one for my collection. I have always wanted this model. My favorite color is green. So you can see we are talking about a green vacuum today, but it is, for the most part, I want to say uh, all original, including the handy carry handle on the front. These machines have gotten incredibly rare over the years, mostly because a lot of people don't know that they even have them because the paint on the handle tended to flake off over time. It's not the greatest paint. I think it's just because of the application process and because it is almost 100 years old. But either way, the Green Goddess is a really, really cool machine. Essentially, it was a way of dressing up a very kind of basic model of the upright. We'll be doing an airway video here coming up soon. This one, it has not ran in a very, very long time, and it is probably going to be a little while before it runs again. I do need to get in there and rewire a new cord as well as some other things for it, just because it has been so long and the original cords are getting a little bit fragile. So that one will be coming to us soon. We'll just have to see kind of where the timing is on that one. But that brings us to the vacuum on my right. This is a Hoover Windtunnel 2, and this is what we were talking about with our vacuum exposition today. So let's get into that and check this thing out. All right, everybody. The time has come to discuss this monstrosity. Now, before I get too far into it, this particular machine was not one that I was particularly looking for. Now, as I've said many times, this kind of does fit in with that whole vacuums saved or vacuums rescued theme. But this particular machine is pretty uncommon now. And I'm actually really excited to bring you guys a video on one of these just because there's not very much out on these things. Now, what we are looking at today is about a 2008 Hoover Windtunnel 2, or Windtunnel W2. Now, the Windtunnel 2 name came out on, well, actually several different machines. It's actually kind of confusing when you're looking for parts for a Windtunnel 2, as well as the bags for this particular model, or really any from this time period, because you had the Wind Tunnel 2 Z700. I'll show a picture of actually mine right here. As you can see, it's a quite a bit different model compared to this. That was their SUV or sport utility vacuum cleaner that Hoover came out with in the early 2000s. Well, at around the same time as this one, actually. But that one was quite a bit different, meant to be kind of a canister and vacuum cleaner at the same time. I did a video on one a while ago. It was actually really, really fun. Definitely go take a look at that one if you get a chance. But they also had one called the Wind Tunnel Dual V, or Wind Tunnel 2, or Wind Tunnel Dual V2, or Wind Tunnel 2 Dual V. it came with a couple different names on it. I'm still looking for one of those too, but I'll show a picture one right here. They came out in a few different colors, much like this one as well. But they were a really cool machine that featured two brush rolls that both revolved simultaneously, um, which is why I kind of want to find one. But that brings us to this one, the Windtunnel 2. Now, this prime specimen I found, well, last week when I was driving home from work as usual. As I've told you guys many times before, I live in an apartment and I am just a stone throw away from the big dumpster where everybody throws their stuff away. And periodically, when people move out, they do not keep their vacuum cleaner, mostly because when they're moving, sometimes they move across the country or maybe they move to a different country. So they don't want to pay to ship their vacuum back. I actually chatted with a neighbor that was moving recently because he was debating on whether he was going to pay to ship his Dyson or just throw it away, or in my case, give it to me because he, well, didn't have any use for it with the current status of his living. Um, Never heard back from him, but that just goes to show that, when this kind of stuff comes up, I try to pluck it because if it gets thrown away, then it's gone for good. This is an excellent example of that. Now, this machine coming out in 2008, this is going on almost, well, just a few years shy of 20 years old, which for vacuum cleaners, you never see them in the homes unless, of course, you're a collector like I am, or something along those lines. Or maybe you just really care about your vacuum cleaner to have it serviced regularly if it's something that can be serviced. Now, the Windtunnel 2 came out as, well, the most technologically advanced vacuum cleaner out on the market at that amount of time. They were sold for the upwards pricing, somewhere close to Dyson's, around $300 to $400 back in 2008. I know that's not that far away, but with inflation, you're looking at, in some cases, almost $700 today's money for this, which I know what you're saying. Why? It's a Hoover. Hoovers don't command that price. Dyson commands that price. Trust me, they were fighting with Dyson to the bitter end with these types of machines. They still are for a lot of ways with cyclonic machines of today, but this machine definitely was one that was a contender against it. And for that reason, they were going ahead and doing advertisements on places like the Home Shopping Network, where they would have two presenters, one who was a little bit more educated on the vacuum cleaner, and then one person that wasn't as informed about it, I guess, demonstrating the capabilities of the Windtunnel 2. And I'll show a picture of actually the Home Shopping Network demonstration. As you can see, they have this model there prominently. They actually had another model sitting right next to it. Now, with the Windtunnel 2, they also introduced a secondary line for just cyclonic machines. This is a bagged machine, and I'll get into that in just a bit, but this was a bag machine. They also had a cyclonic version of it. No, they were not interchangeable. You could not get a cyclonic setup and put it on this. It wasn't plug and play. It wasn't modular in any way, but you could get certain versions of this machine depending on what you needed, depending with allergies and things like that. But in that picture, you see not only this one, but the other one, the cyclonic one, which was actually a really cool machine to an extent that it had a rotating self-cleaning filter, reminiscent of the Z700 with that clickety clack one that goes along, that basically was a little metal finger that would tap the pleats of the filter as it spun, knocking off fine dust, or that's what they intended for it. It didn't really do that. As the machine created that vacuum within the cyclonic dust bin, that fine dust just ended up staying on that or causing a bigger mess, which essentially meant that that machine didn't actually do exactly what they wanted it to. Now, with that, they had versions of each of those in different colors for different model ranges. They came out with a blue one, a red one, of course, you see in the green, as well as a very rare orangey yellow colored one. As far as rarity goes, these are approaching rare status. Currently, they're still pretty uncommon, which there is a difference between those two, because there's a lot of things that are uncommon out there that a lot of people call rare, but they're not necessarily of that rare distinction yet. But as far as rarity goes amongst the models of these, um, if I were to rank them, I would say, just based upon how many I've seen, how much information I could dig up, I would have to say that the orangey yellow one is right at the top. I've literally maybe only seen one or two pictures, and of those two pictures was in the ad for it. So that's got to be the top tier, rarest one, followed by the blue one. Like I said, they did make versions of both of these. But I have seen a couple pictures of blue ones over the years, so that would probably be the second rarest, um, followed by the red one. The red one I have seen a couple videos on that are actually out on YouTube. That one person actually found a brand new in box one semi recently, which is actually really really cool. But that leads up to the green one. The green one would have to be the probably the most common out of these very uncommon machines, just being as that it seemed like this one sold the best, color wise as well as feature wise. But in terms of sales, where you would have picked these up, primarily they started off being, of course, the mail orders, the home shopping networks, as well as big box stores. Um, and like I said, they were priced out pretty high. And I'll show an ad for one actually right here. As you can see, it's pretty hard to actually see the machine in the ad. I tried to get the best ad picture I could, but really they didn't represent these in newspaper ads very often. And that's mostly because, as far as I could tell, Hoover wanted to make their brand more exclusive. So you had to go someplace, you had to do a lot of running around to find one of these. So that made the price a little bit more worth it, in my opinion. I still don't think this was worth it at all in terms of the price. It should have been half the price for what you got, but we'll get into that. Now, these machines, they sold in decent numbers at first because of how much Hoover hyped this, but ultimately we don't see very many of them at all because they were an unfortunate repair hog. So these things, being so technologically advanced, they were lacking in a lot of the quality control, but mostly because the technology was just so new that a lot of people really didn't understand it as much, resulting in a lot of vacuum shops getting to a point where they just could not service these things. The biggest reason was because there are computer boards inside this machine that thus control things like the dirt finder on the front, as well as like the brush roll that can be turned on or off. It's just very complicated, and there's fuses and things like this, all of which can go bad, and when they go bad, it basically means to total out the machine. So we've talked about planned obsolescence before on the channel, but this is another level of that. But moving on to the actual machine itself, as I said, this is a bagged machine. So here you have the W2 bag, not to be confused with the W bag. Back when this machine was new and this came out, a lot of people, when they went to go buy bags, said, "Oh, I just need the W bag," because obviously the W is very prominent on the bag. But they would get it home, and that bag actually went on a much, much older vacuum cleaner, and they'd have to come back and forth. The bags for this machine are actually, and have been, pretty expensive, mostly because they actually have a little hatch that you would pull to close the bag. so that that dust wouldn't go kind of wafting out of the dust hole, I guess you would call it. But that was a feature that unfortunately was a little bit flawed for Hoover. Coming down to it, you still had a carpet height adjustment that kind of was all ranging up at the front. You went, of course, from your hard floor all the way to your high carpet. They call it a surface selector, but it's a height adjustment either way. It is still nice though. This is a very good height adjustment for a machine. Hoover used something similar to this for a very, very long time on their uprights throughout the 90s into the 2000s. It also came with the dirt finder, so you had a sensor, and it would light up this area right here. You'll see it when we do our run demo, but it would light up that area right there, and essentially you would pass over an area. This is a big thing in the Home Shopping Network commercial. Infomercial. But you would pass over it, would say red for dirty, until you pass over it a few more times, and eventually it would go clean, green, and then you would know that your carpet was clean, or at least that's what Hoover wanted you to believe. In addition to that, you also had your power switch up here towards the top. This was another source of, well, problems, because right up here is the switch, but it is a single stage switch. So this goes back to another motherboard back there. So if anything went bad with the motherboard, you didn't have a switch. And if that went bad, you basically, again, totaled out the vacuum cleaner. So that was a problem. Now, they advertised this with real-time tool system. I can't tell you how dumb that actually sounds. Real-time tool system. Let's just repeat that a couple more times. Real-time tool system. So that means you can use your tools at all times or in real time. That's the case with most upright vacuum cleaners that have onboard tools. So that was just some zing marketing wording that they put on there. Really dumb, in my opinion, but whatever. They were trying to sell the vacuum. That's their deal. But you also had a Hoover branded turbo tool at the top to do your different upholstery settings and whatnot. So that was handy. It's actually interesting because there were technically two renditions of this machine with the bagged in the green that actually came with a green one, which I kind of wish I had. That's this one, just because it would look way, way better in my opinion. But beggars can't be choosers when you're picking things from behind the dumpster, as I do. But let's bring it around the back and see what we're looking at there. Now, the back of the machine is just about as interesting as the front. And by interesting, I mean not very much at all, but still strange and cool in some strange way. You did have onboard tools. Unfortunately, I only have a crevice tool with mine. It did come with things like an upholstery tool and a dusting brush that would fit in these holes right here. But like I said, don't have them, unfortunately. Again, this came from behind a dumpster. They probably were lost 10 years ago. But that just leads me to the next big feature with this. Now, like I said, Dysons were very hot at this point. You saw things like the DC-07, the DC-15, the DC-14, all that were coming out with a very specific feature that, as far as Americans got, we only saw it on certain things like the Phantoms. So Hoover introduced a removable hose. So here you have a removable hose. And by removable, I mean you can't really take this off. You can extend it out, which is nice. Hoover has been known to have extending aluminum pipes for their extension ones, which has always been a good feature. But this is a very bulky, if you can tell, handle compared to the Dyson, which is just so flowing and thus more friendly for users. But the hose actually doesn't come off. Like on a Dyson, the hose actually detaches. But that was not a factor that Hoover needed, apparently, when developing the W2 or Windtunnel 2. Now, in addition to this, for hose storage, because Hoover didn't think that they needed to put the extension wand down the hose like Dyson does in order to keep it manageable and clean, they had another option, which was actually more of a backcountry fix in comparison to what Dyson did. Instead, because the ribbing on the hose is metal, what they did, they affixed a series of magnets to this indented area of the back of the machine that would essentially stick to the hose. So, thus keeping it right there. Now, if you are like anybody else and you vacuum, this just popped right off easily. So, that unfortunately was a design feature that a lot of people just kind of wondered why. That just kind of didn't make a whole lot of sense. But you also had one more big feature around the back here. This big rounded area is not just there for aesthetics. They actually had a cord winder on this, that which you would go and plug it in. We've talked about cord winders a few times, but essentially you would take it out and then you would hit this button and it would retract the cord, thus meaning that you didn't have to wrap it up, which at this point, I'm kind of surprised that they wouldn't make something that couldn't fail on this machine, because a lot did and a lot will on most things. Now, why do I bring this thing to our attention? I actually really like this thing. It is a very dumb vacuum cleaner, and most people hate these for the reason that they just were not user friendly. But with how quirky it is, how I love to preserve vacuum cleaner history, it's actually pretty cool. I've actually done a lot of digging on these machines lately, and I have to say, they're just interesting enough. They're just bad enough that they're good. Uh, Not at a performance level, I assure you. I'm talking mostly about at a thingy level, if you will. It's just weird. It's not built well. It is not practical. It is not light. It performs okay, but you could have gotten a lot of better products at the time, which is why these didn't sell well, which is why they're so rare now. Still, I think it's a really cool machine, which is why I wanted to bring it to you guys. It looks really weird, but why? Why not? You know, um, for a side profile, it actually almost looks like Iron Man's head. This big section right here. Here we'll try to turn it like that. See, kind of yellow, red, maybe. I don't know. That's just what I thought when I saw it. But it's a very weird machine. And I can't wait to display it with the other Windtunnel 2 Z700, as well as a Dual V when I find one of those. But anyways, let's get on to our run demo and see how this thing performs. All right, everybody, so we have the Windtunnel 2 all plugged in and ready to go. I do have to play with the sound a little bit, just because I did learn from the last video that when I had my mic on, it didn't capture the sound of the machine itself, just me. So I have to take that off, and we will see how this thing does. So let's get to it. Well, everybody, we had such an interesting machine to take a look at today. I am pretty impressed with how it did on the floor. These do really actually do a pretty decent job. It just definitely gives you a bicep workout, just because of, well, how heavy these things are. And I mean, like, we're talking about their competition being Kirby's that were self-propelled, that were lighter than or just the same weight as these things. So honestly, they really had an uphill battle going against Dyson and Kirby at this time, which ultimately is why they didn't sell very well. But it's still a really cool machine, and if anybody is out there and they see one of these, grab it, because once they're gone, they're gone. Someday in the future, these are going to be, the next Westinghouse Convertivac, or Kenmore Saturn, or one of those with the early power nozzles. These are going to be rare one day. I'm predicting it right now. They are going to be rare, and they may not be right now. They may just be considered uncommon. People will call these junk. They'll call them not worth the plastic they were made out of. They will be desirable to somebody in the future. They are already pretty desirable right now, but from a collector standpoint. But as it is, it's a pretty cool machine. It's going to display really, really well, and I can't wait to show it with the others from the time period. I'm really getting into these 90s, 2000s, in addition to the 80s, 70s, 60s, and everything else I've already been into. But the changes in the vacuum cleaner history, as well as collector influence and collector interest these days, it really has shaped a lot of, well, the pathway that I need to go down in terms of collecting machines. I love the older machines. That's why I have that very old Airway. But everybody's interests change over time, I think, and it's good to see things that came out while I've been alive that are starting to become rare. Um, it is definitely a really, really cool thing to see the progression of collectors. And it's really cool to see a machine like this anyways, just because technology has evolved to the point where a vacuum cleaner is just about as smart as a MacBook Pro. So seeing something at the forefront of that, well, it's just interesting at the same level. So, but I hope you all enjoyed our little video today. I know it's not on a really older one, so it may not have captured everybody's interest, but it was still a really, really cool one for me anyways, and I know there's a lot of people out there that would love to see a video on another one of these out there. As I stated earlier, there's not very much out there aside from a couple of commercials, that Home Shopping Network commercial, and a couple of collector videos out there, but hopefully this is a good addition to what's out there for people that need the information. But anyways, you guys all have a great rest of your weekend, as well as a good week. We are going into Thanksgiving season, so I know a lot of us have a lot to be thankful for, and I'll probably do a special video for my Thanksgiving episode. So, but you guys all have a great rest of your week, a great week, and we will catch you again next Sunday, same place, same time, same guy, different vacuum. You guys all have a great rest of your day.